In Milan, it's mission bring Charles de Ketelaere's confidence back up. Milan held a penalty contest within the team during their USA tour. It looks like the finalists were new signing Tiani Reinders and Charles de Ketelaere. CDK decided to win this contest with a sublime Panenka penalty kick, and this is how his teammates reacted. Clearly trying to give the guy a mental boost. And then there was this team exercise, juggling the ball to the bin. And just look at the Ketelaere's response to getting the ball in the bin. That's the man they want. They want the happy, smiling, confident Charles de Ketelaere, and not the scared, confused, looking out of place player we had last season. And finally, the Rossoneri fan base's prayers and pleas for a quality right winger have been answered. Samuel Chukwueze arrives in Milan, ready to sign his contract and start his career with the Rossoneri. And it is being reported that a Saudi club has made contact with Ismail Bennacer's entourage to get the Algerian midfielder to make a move to the Saudi Pro League. And today's video is going to be a little bit different. No typical rumor or reel today. It's going to be more about the squad that we already have. A lot of you guys have messaged me asking me what I think about the future of a ton of these players. And in this video, we're going to go over the tier list and discuss each and every player and see where they fit, to see if they have a future with the Rossoneri or if, in my opinion, they should be on their way out. All right, so let's kick this off, guys. We got a simple 4-tier system here, hands off for players that are completely untouchables, not available for sale. We got the players for which the journey's over. Some players, some profiles that we feel like can be sent on loan to get a little bit of extra experience, but an asset we still want to hold on to. And then there are those that we definitely want to hold on to right now. Now, Mike Maignan obviously is a player that is completely hands off. There's no chance that Milan should have any idea, any inkling of selling this player. He's probably arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. But at the same time, there were some reports that Milan was looking at some offers coming in, I believe from Manchester United before they went after Onana. There may have been an offer in the 60 million range. Milan decided not to sell. Now that we have a bit more of a base, we have a setup of a good team, it's time to offer this guy a renewal. His wages need to be increased. Milan need to hold on to him on a long-term basis. Most contracts are till 27, 28. That's the exact same thing we have to do with Mike as well. And then there's the case of Ante Rebic. Guys, Ante Rebic has been one of those players. It's been a bit of a problem child for Stefano Pioli. A couple seasons ago, he was refusing to play right flank, right wing when Milan desperately needed somebody. And then last time around, last season, there was a bit of conflict between him and Pioli. I believe it was an important match against Juventus, and Pioli didn't even pick him. He wasn't even in the squad. No injuries to the player, just not picked purely because of his behavior. So at this point in time, looking back at the tier list, I think it's pretty obvious. Ante Rebic's time at Milan, guys, I think that's over for sure now. And it does look like Milan have received an offer from Besiktas. It does seem like the negotiations are actually complete. So it looks like Ante Rebic's days at Milan are pretty much numbered now. And the only thing I'd say about Ante Rebic is, over time, the guy developed a reputation as being a second half player for Milan 2 seasons in a row. I believe he had more than 10 goals in the second half, helped Milan get back into the Champions League, and was part of the squad that won the Serie A title. So all in all, his career at Milan was pretty decent. And then there's the case of Rafael Leao. That's a very easy, obvious one. This is a complete hands-off pursuit. I mean, the fact that Milan has now been able to get a few other players, star players to the squad, probably makes Rafael Leao feel a lot better about the team. He was feeling pretty uneasy about what was happening at Milan after Maldini and Tonali's sale. At this point in time, it looks like he's pretty happy. His smile is back and he seems to be excited about Milan's project. And the fact that he's on a contract till 2028, he has a 150 million release clause, I think Milan fans feel pretty good about his future here. Theo Hernandez, another easy case of absolute hands off of this player. The one thing that I would say is Milan really desperately needs to increase their revenue, because if they cannot increase their revenue, I feel like they will be forced to sell players in Mercatos this time around. It did look like during the Sandro Tonali sale that Manchester United did come to Milan for Theo, but the offer that they made for the player just wasn't enough. For all we know, maybe there's a possibility that instead of Sandro Tonali, it would have been a sale of Theo Hernandez if an offer closer to the 90 million mark would have been reached. Obviously, we're finding in the future what happens with this player, but for now, it's hands off. Milan's captain, our right back, Davide Calabria, I don't think this is a hands off profile, guys. I think he's more of in the hold on category. We don't really have any other right backs that we can really rely on. So for me, Davide Calabria obviously is not going to be available for sale, but this is one of those positions, guys. There's a little bit of a concern about quality. Davide has been a somewhat choppy player. If he wasn't the captain of the team, if he hadn't been part of our youth system and been at the club for ages now, would he be a player that we're always banking on the way that we bank on Theo Hernandez? Or if we find a higher quality right back, we would look to sign at a good price. So I don't think Milan's reliability on Davide is the same as Theo Hernandez. But for now, at this point in time, with this season around, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be staying at Milan. If Milan wants to start competing in the Champions League and fighting for titles, we need consistent performances from Davide and not just against Napoli when he's playing against Kvaratskhelia. And the other right back that the Rossoneri have, which is Pierre Kalulu. Pierre Kalulu, again, another player Milan's going to have to hold on to. Just like we don't have 100% reliability on Davide, we also don't have 100% reliability on Pierre Kalulu, but what we do know is that he's gone on to become a fairly versatile player in Milan's backline. I mean, the fact is that the Rossoneri can rely on Pierre Kalulu as a right back, they can rely on him as a center back, so the versatility he offers to the squad, there's no doubt in my mind that Milan needs to hold on to Kalulu. And then there's the case of Marko Lazetic, a 19-year-old striker. Milan have had him for about a season and a half now. The only problem is he hasn't really made any appearances for the Rossoneri. I mean, he's been sitting on the bench whenever he's available. Otherwise, he's sent on loan to other places. When he was sent on loan last, he scored 0 goals over there too. You just start to wonder if this is a player that Milan has invested in, but is it really an asset that's over time really even going to improve that much? I think for me, a season and a half might be enough time to see if the player has the quality or not. I haven't really seen Marko Lazetic play too much, but from what I'm seeing, the fact that he's not getting any play time, I'm going to put him in the it's over category. I don't think he really needs to be at this club. We need strikers that actually have something to offer. Keep in mind, just like we talked about Pierre Kalulu, there was a time that he was completely on the outside. He was just sitting on the bench, and suddenly we started to play him and he showed his quality on the field. And then he almost became a regular for us in our Scudetto winning campaign. Marko Lazetic just hasn't shown enough for me. It's over for him. Then there's the Englishman, Fikayo Tomori. Easy category for me. Look, we lost Sandro Tonali, yes, but there are certain players that I feel like Milan could have lost, and that's pretty much this hands-off category. Mike Maignan, Rafael Leao, Theo Hernandez, Fikayo Tomori. If there's any asset I would have to sell in the hands-off category, it would be the number 5 player, and that would have been Sandro Tonali. I rate 4 of these players in terms of their importance to Milan a little bit higher. Fikayo Tomori, you could say maybe 5th, but the other guys for sure to me were above Sandro. There's no doubt in my mind Fikayo Tomori is a complete hands-off player. Milan cannot consider selling him, and quite honestly, we haven't really even received a lot of interest. The thing is, high-quality players, expensive players, more likely than not are only going to be recruited by Premier League clubs, and it doesn't look like a lot of Premier League clubs are interested in Fikayo. So for now, I think that asset is safe. For me, guys, Simon Kjær has reached an advanced stage. We saw him play in the friendly against Real Madrid. He looked pretty slow. Now, does he offer Milan's backline some depth? Yes, for sure. For that reason, Milan will be forced to hold on to him, especially with the departure of Gabbia. However, I think Milan is playing a little bit of a risky game with the absence of center backs that they've signed this mercato. Gabbia leaves, depleting Milan's backline even more. Pierre Kalulu didn't look like the same player. Malik Chow, yes, he's a quality player, but he's had one good season, and who knows if he gets injured. We only have Fikayo Tomori and Simon Kjær left. But I am going to do something radical with Simon Kjær. I think Simon Kjær's time at Milan is done. I think Milan should move on from this player, and they should probably look at signing one, for sure, maybe even 2 good quality center backs. It's going to cost the club money, so I know for a fact Simon Kjær is unlikely to go anywhere, but if things were in my control, that's probably what I would do. And then there's the case of Alessandro Florenzi, a player who came to Milan, won the Serie A title with his boyhood club, but I think Florenzi's time at Milan as well. Guys, I think it's done. These players are old now. If Milan is building around youth and trying to create a system where we're going to be able to win things, we need the right kind of backup players available on the field as well. Now, I know why the Rossoneri, let me switch to full screen. I know why the Rossoneri are going to be holding on to these players. One of the key reasons is the experience that Kjær provides to these young players, the experience that Florenzi provides to these young players. And I think I don't have much of a doubt that they're going to both be staying with Milan next season. But if in this tier list, I do think their time with the Rossoneri is over because their availability on the field is fairly limited in my opinion now. Now, I do think these players might not be properly visible, so I'm going to change the background for this one to white so you can see these properly. We're going to jump on to Divock Origi. Guys, with Divock Origi, things get so much more interesting. The player that Milan signed last mercato, one of the final signings of Paolo Maldini's time at Milan, but unfortunately a player who hasn't really done much for the Rossoneri. At this point in time, it does seem like Milan is going to cash out on this player. He was signed on a free transfer. His probable value right now might be closer to 10 to 12 million. That's going to be a decent amount of capital gains for Milan. So from a business perspective, it may not be the worst move. We did make the Champions League last season, so it wasn't a complete failure. With all the attacking players that they're adding, I think Divock Origi's time at Milan Milan, I was tempted to hold on to the player to offer the club a little bit of depth. And I do think Milan possibly needs a second striker until that signing comes in. I was tempted to hold on to Divock Origi, but I think it's done. I think his time at Milan is done. It just hasn't been what we wanted it to be. And it does seem like there are some offers coming in for him. And most fans will be hoping that he'll accept one of those and move on. Malik Thiaw, Milan is already depleted in my opinion in defense. So there's no doubt about the fact that Malik Thiaw has to stay with the Rossoneri. This is a player for the future. One of those genius Paolo Maldini signings like Rafael Leao was, like Theo Hernandez turned out to be. This has the potential of being one of the best signings that Maldini has made. High quality center backs, guys, are not easy to find, and Paolo Maldini found one for what, 8 million this player came on. Seeing him play on the international level as well, he just fits completely perfectly. The guy seems so comfortable in defense. He has the right stature, he's fast, he's not afraid to put in the tackles, and he has this confidence for his age. He has this confidence of a center back that you absolutely need. I still think Milan lacks in defensive depth, but what Malik Thiaw has offered to this club is absolutely incredible, and there's no doubt about the fact that this player has to be held on to and nurtured and grown and turned into a superstar center back. And then there's the curious case of Junior Messias, the player heavily disliked by a lot of Milan fans. Now it does seem like there were a couple of clubs where Torino was coming for him. Junior Messias conveniently in the US tour, in the first match against Real Madrid, manages to somehow injure himself, and it does look like right now he's probably going to be off the mercato. I mean, who's going to be putting their money into an injured player? Does this mean Messias stays at the club next season? Yes, there's absolutely a high likelihood that he does. In my opinion, Messias' time, I'm going to put him in the it's over category. I think his time at Milan is definitely done. However, it does look like his last season may not have been his final season with the Rossoneri. But if he recovers his injury before the mercato closes, there's a possibility in the last few days someone does pick him up. Tommaso Pobega. Now, this is one player that I was actually hoping that Milan would move on from during this summer window. I've never really bought into this player. I'm not sure what the whole hype with him was about. And when he joined, maybe there was a little too much pressure on him. He was technically considered a replacement partially for Franck Kessie, which is a ridiculous ask of a player that young. But to me, he just hasn't impressed whatsoever. But then the issue becomes the fact that Milan needs a little bit of depth in their midfield. It does seem like now we're going to be playing in a 4-3-3 setup. And if it were up to me, I would say Pobega's experience at Milan, I think it should be over. I think the player should be sold and the asset should essentially be cashed out on, but it doesn't seem like it. I think Milan's going to end up holding on to the player. And I think with the 4-3-3 setup, it's a new setup, a little bit of experience, a player who's played with the rest of the players for the past couple seasons. I think Pobega adds a little bit of value. I guess Milan should, and obviously they will hold on to him. Rade Krunic, a player that has kind of become like a holding midfielder for Milan. I don't know what exactly happened with this player. We've played him as a central attacking midfielder. We used to play him as a left winger. He's now turned into a central midfielder, and probably this seems like the role that he's likely most comfortable in. There were some reports that a club was coming for Rade Krunic. There was a potential offer coming in, and I did put up this tweet, this poll to see if a decent offer comes in for Krunic, do you think Milan should be selling the player? It's virtually split halfway. My opinion on Rade Krunic is this. I think he offers a lot of versatility. He's a role player who offers depth to this team. He's fully aware of his squad. He's played with them for multiple seasons now. It sounds wild saying this, and I want you guys to let me know in the comment section if you agree with this or not. For whatever reason, there's something about Krunic that is starting to turn him, in my eyes, as a bit of a leader at this club. And to go from holding a Messias-style reputation and turning into a leader for this team in just a matter of a few seasons. For me, Krunic's sale should be a no-go. He's an important player for Pioli, and I actually don't really see Milan selling him anyways. So on the tier list, I would say Krunic, hold on. And now with some news coming out about a French journalist reporting that a Saudi club has reached out to Ismail Bennacer. They're in touch with their entourage. They've expressed their desire to bring the player to the league. I think it becomes important for Milan to actually put a value on this particular player. Personally, I wouldn't want Bennacer to be sold. I think he's an integral part of Milan's midfield, but he does seem to have a recurring injury problem. At the same time, this particular move is not being reported for the summer mercato, but instead something that's going to take place in the winter season. Because reportedly, that is when Bennacer will make his return back from injury. Now, my question to you is this. If Milan can get the right value for Bennacer, should we be selling him as well? It's incredible to think that in a span of a year and a half, we'll lose all three of our midfielders from the Scudetto winning campaign. But getting a certain amount, especially from a Saudi club, if we can extract somewhere north of 40 million plus, should Milan sell him. But right now, I would put Bennacer in the hands-off category. Gabbia, well, this one, Gabbia kind of made it easy for me. The player's already been sent on loan. He's already arrived at Villarreal. He wasn't technically part of the Chukwueze deal, but it does look like it was kind of a show of good faith from Milan to include this player and send him to Villarreal to help out their defense a little bit. For Ballo-Touré, his time at Milan, this is an easy one. His time at Milan is done. He just doesn't offer the kind of depth that Milan needs on the left flank. I think I would prefer Florenzi ahead of Ballo-Touré, and this is an important role for Milan to fill in. That backup, that left back backup for Theo Hernandez is crucial. Theo has been running on fumes for the past couple of seasons. We're lucky that he hasn't had a serious injury happen to him considering the amount of mileage we're putting on this player. So Ballo-Touré for me, his time at Milan is done, but we desperately need a backup left back for Theo Hernandez. And I've seen in some comment section people talking about the fact that that's Florenzi. No, we need a specialist left back, not a makeshift guy. Which brings us to our right wing with the signing of Samuel Chukwueze. With the arrival of Christian Pulisic, is there any future for Alexis Salamakers at this club, especially with the fact that Junior Macias is now injured? Is there a possibility he gets sold? Is there a possibility that Alexis moves on? It's very difficult to say. I'm confused about Alexis, I'll be honest, guys. I think for now, because of my soft spot for the player, I'm going to put him in the hold on category. The curious case of Yacine Adli. Oh, this player, nobody really understands what the problem with Stefano Pioli with some of the young players is. This season is going to be a telling season for Stefano Pioli. There have been multiple players in the past. Jens Petter Auga, young players like CDK who haven't been used. Yacine Adli completely unused. When he did come on at times as a substitute, he didn't look too bad. So it was kind of surprising that Pioli was just giving him no time whatsoever. Yacine Adli's time at Milan, for me, I am going to put him in the hold on category. I think his time at Milan might actually be over. That's the reality. For me, I would put him in the hold on category. Give the guy a little bit more time. Give him a season to blossom. Put him into the team. Let him get some minutes. But I'd be very surprised if Adli is at the club when the season kicks off. Antonio Mirante serves a particular purpose for Milan. There is a certain amount of Italian players the team needs to have. He kind of fills in that quota right now. It looks like Milan is mostly going for the international players. They're turning into a bit of an internazionale Milan. But as fans, especially the non-Italian fans, we care way more about the success. If that comes through Christian Pulisic and Charles de Ketelaere and Samuel Chukwueze, we'll be thrilled as much as if it came in the past with the majority Italian players on the team. Antonio Mirante's future at Milan, this is obvious. We're going to be holding on to the player, but Sportiello, outside of his howler against Real Madrid in the preseason friendly, is a bit more of a reliable backup player to Mike Maignan compared to how Tatarusanu and Mirante were. Olivier Giroud, this is, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. Very easy. We're going to have to hold on to him. He might just have another season left in him though, guys. We'll have to see how he plays this season, but I do have a feeling that Olivier Giroud's time at Milan might be done after this year. Charles de Ketelaere, I can't believe after the intro I kept this player till so late in the video. CDK is an interesting situation right now, guys. Clearly the entire Milan squad, they're just trying to help him get back his confidence. There's no doubt about the fact that the guy has capability. It's just about what kind of capability he actually has. There have been a ton of doubters about this player's quality level. If we go back to his time at Club Brugge, outside of what he did in the league, he was a pretty decent player in the Champions League. You just can't perform against big clubs like PSG with decent defenses the way he did if you don't have the right quality. It just seems like it's completely shut off for him. He's completely lost his confidence, but this summer tour, this USA tour, with him rejecting a potential offer from PSV, and for him to say that he wants to continue to fight for a position at the club and wants to impress Pioli, and there's something about CDK's behavior that just makes him seem like he's a little bit more relaxed, and that probably came a little bit from the coach. I'm sure he's had a conversation with him that I'm going to give you a chance, because if he was completely out of the coach's plan still, I just don't think he would be looking the way he's been looking on screen. I think it has to do with the fact that he feels comfortable, he possibly feels wanted at the club. And going back to the tier list, for me, CDK, I think Milan should absolutely hold on to the player. I think give him some time. I don't think his journey at Milan should be over. One season just feels a little bit rough, especially now that a lot of focus is off of him. So there's going to be a lot less focus on CDK and a lot better support system around him. Not just Rafael Leao, but it's going to be Leao, Chukwueze, Pulisic, Okafor. So hopefully that brings out the best of CDK and Milan can eventually benefit from that. And then there are some recently promoted Primavera players. There's Giancarlo Simic, who was a fairly unknown player until he played against Real Madrid in the first friendly in the preseason tour. And it looked like over there, he impressed a lot of people. Real Madrid was playing a pretty decent squad, and the fact that he was able to go at times toe-to-toe with their players, he was very impressive. And also, considering the fact that Gabbia's out, there's a possibility that Milan at this point holds on to him and not send him on loan, so we at least have a little bit of depth in our backline. And then there's a story of Ketelaere. He does seem to be pretty highly rated, but with the situation with Lazetic and all that, I think Ketelaere might be a guy at the age of 19. I think I'd be pretty comfortable if Milan sends him on loan. In order to truly grow, I think Milan should send him out on loan. And then there was one, and let me tell you guys something. I do plan on talking about Stefano Pioli in detail in one of the coming videos, but this might be the one person I'm a little bit concerned about. Guys, with everything that has unfolded in the past couple of months, all these signings that Milan has made, before that Tonali sale, before that Maldini, before that Ibrahimovic's farewell, before that Juventus getting deducted 10 points, there was a time that we were very doubtful of Stefano Pioli's future at the club, and a lot of people were looking to get him fired. But all of those things that I just listed out kind of distracted us from some of the doubts that we had about this coach. For now, if I go into the tier list, I'm gonna have to put Stefano Pioli as hold on. But one thing that I feel about this club is this: Stefano Pioli might be one of the slighter, weaker links at this club. So if we don't hit the ground running and get the right results within the first 10 matches, I think there are going to be serious doubts coming up about Stefano Pioli's future at this club. And there you have it, guys. That's the tier list for Milan's Mercato. I think this was the easiest way for me to tell you what I think about some of the players' future at this club. And you guys let me know in the comment section which ones you agree with, which ones you don't. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you can watch these videos as soon as I upload them. And as always, Forza Milan, grazie mille e ciao tutti.